Let's go.
Yep.
Go ahead.
3, 2, 1. And good morning, everyone. Welcome in to a brand new edition of Sports Medicine Weekly on this Sunday morning, our new time, coming at you every Sunday at 7 a.m. I'm Steve Cashel, joined as always by my co-host, Dr. Brian Cole, head team physician for the Chicago Bulls, sports medicine specialist, orthopedic surgeon from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Our producer is Shane Reardon. A reminder, you're invited to tune into our Sports Medicine Weekly podcasts, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, where you can listen to current and past shows. Our website is sportsmedicineweekly.com. And Dr. Cole, I hope you're doing well on this weekend. And let's get right into it because we've got a great guest on the phone with us, one of your partners from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush, Dr. Nick Verma, head team physician for the Chicago White Sox. The MLB season underway. Couple hiccups here and there we've seen, but baseball is back on board. We're happy to see that. And Dr. Verma, if you can, take us through what it took to get this season back going and with MLB's own protocols.
Well, guys, thanks again for having me, and it's great to be here. There's so much great topics to discuss with everything that's going on in this pandemic. You know, it is awesome to see baseball back online, but it really took a fairly Herculean effort to get even where we are today. And I think that the Major League Baseball Commissioner's Office, as well as the Team Physician Association and the team physicians who were involved in all the decision-making, did an amazing job of putting together a very thoughtful protocol about how to make it as safe as possible for players and how to handle different types of situations like positive tests as they come up.
Nick, give us a brief overview. There's every sport has fundamental differences. We in the NBA, we have a bubble where we're sort of limiting people coming in and out, and they're all in one place. For the listeners who may not know, what's the sort of structure of how? I think you're talking about 60 games, if I'm not mistaken, going into September.
Correct.
And the basic structure, where they're going to play and how they're going to travel. What does that look like from an architectural point of view?
So it's a little bit different than basketball, Brian. As you know, basketball was a little bit easier to put everybody into a bubble and play in a single or a group of stadiums in a single city. The problem with baseball for doing that is to just find a city with enough stadiums to accommodate the games. And for the length of time that the season was going to take place over, just didn't make it feasible. So really what baseball elected to do was to allow teams to use their home stadiums if the local governance allowed for it. And the one exception has been, as you all know, Toronto, where the government said we're not comfortable with players going in and out of Canada for games. And so Toronto's playing in Buffalo at the moment. But each jurisdiction, let's call it, or city has governance over their stadiums. And if we get to a situation where a certain city doesn't feel that it's safe to play, then we'll have to cross that bridge, likely with that team moving to a minor league ballpark in another state that's safer.
Again, visiting with Dr. Nick Verma, head team physician for the Chicago White Sox. This is Sports Medicine Weekly. On an injury front, Dr. Verma, what challenges do you see for these major league players as far as sore arms? It is a different season, or is it pretty much the same where you're optimistic that a lot of these guys can stay injury-free with a shorter season?
Yeah, I think that's been all of our concerns, Steve. And, the biggest one is really the fact that they had let's call it 2/3 of spring training or at least a half of spring training. And then there was a shutdown. And then there was a really quick ramp up after that to get back to play. And so I think no matter what sport we're looking at, whether it's the time off in baseball, the time off in basketball, the time off in hockey, what we're really worried about is going from low loads to high loads over a rapid period of time, where we have some concern that we may see things like hamstring strains or pulls, elbows becoming sore or having problems with elbow ligament injuries, potentially even things like ACLs, et cetera, in basketball or other sports. I'll tell you, from the start of the season, and we're now probably just over 4 weeks in baseball, knock on wood, we've been pleasantly surprised that we have not seen a huge injury outbreak, so to speak. And I think it's really a testament to the players who were really on top of self-policing, or not even policing, I shouldn't say, but of taking care of their bodies and doing what they needed to do to make sure they were ready to go when the restart happened. And so we've been fortunate in that we haven't seen that. I think the one area where we do see a little bit of a struggle is particularly in the starting pitching, and whether those players or those pitchers are able to go as deep into games as they normally would. And I think that that's probably putting a little bit of extra load on the bullpen. But again, Major League Baseball was thoughtful about this in allowing for a higher number of roster players to begin with. We started with 30 and we'll taper towards 26.
Nick, I'm curious, from a coverage point of view, I know I'm not going to be covering any games. There's just a couple individuals now going to be covering. Is that correct? Just to sort of keep it as a small group so we can control who's coming in and coming out. How's that going? What's been delegated, and then as far as testing goes, I know that you have to be tested on some regular basis. Just give us sort of an overview of how that's working out.
Yeah, so as you know, Brian, with the bowl season and for us with the baseball season, neither of us could do what we do individually as head team physicians, and it takes really a team effort to make sure that the team gets the coverage that they need and the medical support that they need. So typically during a regular season, we would have about 5 to 6 orthopedic surgeons and 5 primary care docs who would be circulating in and out for day of game coverage just to make sure someone was there. If an injury had happened either on the orthopedic side or, for example, like a concussion injury, would be handled by primary care. Because of the new situation with really wanting to have very controlled access to players and limited risk of transmission, we have been restricted in terms of the number of people that can have locker room access, so to speak. Baseball's done that on a tier system, so anybody who has direct access on a day-to-day basis is considered tier 1, and that's the same tier that the players are in. And so we have 3 orthopedic surgeons and 3 primary care docs who are going to handle all of the coverage and all of the care of the team. And we're on the same testing protocol as the players are, just to make sure that as we come in and out of the locker room, that we're not putting a player at risk from a COVID standpoint.
Dr. Verma, continued success. Appreciate your insight today here on Sports Medicine Weekly.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
That's Dr. Nick Verma, head team physician for the Chicago White Sox and Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Let's move on